Yes, indeed, that time, dig deep into the wallet, hope for the best. Welcome into MidPoint, our daily segment. The Money Master, Newsmax Director of Financial Newsletters, Jeff Yastine. First thing we got to do, Jeff, check in on how the market's doing today.
And the market's having another quite good day. The Dow's up 82 points, S&P 500's up about 15, and the Nasdaq is, S&P's up 10, and the Nasdaq's up 15. And interesting, the last 2 days, the Nasdaq has set highs that we haven't seen since the March of the year 2000.
What would drive those numbers from the Nasdaq?
You know, a lot of it just has to do with this feeling of, you might say, an absence of bad news. Fuel prices are down, borrowing costs are low, and animal spirits are revved up on Wall Street. There's really no simpler way to put it.
I am hearing, and a lot of us are hearing, the I word being mentioned around Wall Street of late, the inflation word again. Isn't that supposed to be like a dirty word? You're not supposed to use that ever?
It is. And, you know, in many ways, we've been waiting to hear something substantial about inflation for a number of years now. You would think that inflation would be running rampant the way the Fed has done its quantitative easing policies. And, you know, we haven't really seen those sorts of impacts yet, although rent costs are certainly going up and food costs are going up. But typically, like food and fuel, those are considered volatile components by the Federal Reserve. Most of the time, the Fed and Wall Street pay attention to the core rate, which strips out both of those.
You brought up food. Carl Riccadonna, who's an economist for Deutsche Bank, was on CNBC today, and he said this: energy prices have been tame, but if we look at the food inflation pipeline, it's definitely looking like food prices and food inflation is accelerating. Food inflation year on year is running at 2.4%. Any specific reason being given? I mean, certainly global warming is a part of it. Certainly we have to look at what's being made, what is being manufactured, what is being grown these days. Is there anything specific that falls into this?
A handful of things. You have drought conditions in some areas that have seen, obviously need a great deal of water for the growing seasons. And you have other components like, ethanol and other things that tend to, draw part of the supply away from, typical foodstuff type consumption. So there's really no one factor involved here, except that, there's a lot of people in our world today, and they need more food. And also in Asia, you have a lot more higher incomes. So people in those countries, typically more of a rice and vegetable diet in, say, 20, 30 years ago. Now, much more consumption of meat and other sort of real high value foodstuffs, which also contribute to this demand and cost for these materials.
About a minute 30 left here. I found this interesting in Reuters. When companies flee U.S. tax system, investors often don't reap big returns. We've often go overseas. They make a ton of money. Not so, is it?
No, it's true, and this points on something that I used to be a finance reporter, and you learn it is something of a fashion business, and so they follow these things in corporate America. They do what their investment bankers tell them to do, and this is certainly something with these inversions. The Reuters looked at, I think, 50 of these deals. 19 of them, the stocks outperformed the S&P. 19 did not, and something like 10 got bought out. So it's really sort of, and you have to wonder if companies, when they do this, they're really thinking of financial engineering and not so much what they should be doing in terms of building a better product or creating a better, really creates value.
All right, Jeff, always a pleasure, my friend. Get back to work, will you please? We'll see you again tomorrow.
Thanks.
Tomorrow.
Thanks, Ed.
All right, be sure to get your copy of Warren Buffett's Next Door, the world's greatest investor, by visiting FIR411.com and learn all about the amount of money that you can make during the day, all right? We have discussed today here on MidPoint many things, but we have focused a lot on how the terrorist group ISIS needs to be taken seriously. The experts will tell this than anything Osama bin Laden would have conjured up. He's the focus in this American Moment.
In the early morning hours of May 2nd, 2011, the Central Intelligence Agency launched Operation Neptune Spear and set into motion a mission to bring one of the world's most notorious terrorists to justice. All indications were that Osama bin Laden was asleep as the U.S. Naval Special Warfare Development Group, known as SEAL Team 6, approached his highly secured three-story Pakistani-based compound. From entry to exit took approximately 45 minutes, with the bulk of time being used to gather up a plethora of al-Qaeda intelligence materials. When located in his living quarters on the third floor of his compound, the head of the Islamist group al-Qaeda was found using his young wife as a shield. The Obama administration reported the 54-year-old terrorist was given a traditional Islamic burial at sea. 9 years, 7 months, and 21 days following his infamous attack on New York's Twin Towers, killing thousands of innocent civilians, its mastermind, Osama bin Laden, was dead. You're watching An American Moment on Newsmax TV.